Hello everybody. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming back. And I hope you're looking forward to another session of reading bits and pieces of all sorts of stuff that could possibly have happened in an imaginary story written by Edith Nesbit, namely more from the story of the Amulet. Right, while I have you here, I know I should be just talking to you, not looking at my phone, but I'm looking at my phone because I need to remember to open up my Twitch on my phone so that I can sometimes it's a great way for me to actually see what's going on without having to be over-focused on it. There, right, that's done. I now have the thing that was on my sleeve gone, the bit of fluff, because it was distracting me, so that's gone. Yay. My head is itchy. Try to get the itchies out of the way. I'm itchy, sorry. It's just a general itchy thing. Right, what's up? What's up? Not a lot. I'm meant to be doing grocery shopping, but that will be tomorrow. That's just one of those things. Oops, get my water bottle out of the way because I don't need that there, threatening to fall over on me or anything like that. Right, what's up here is that it is, yes, we're still in the middle of June, which means it's the first month of winter here in New Zealand. It's grey and overcast outside, so that means it's a little bit cooler, hence the cardigan to stop us getting too cold. I've got the slippers on, and if you hear rattles underneath me, that's, sorry, itchy nose. The rattles that you hear will be because I have my feet propped up on something that I use. It's actually a CD holder, a special round one like this that you used to be able to scroll along it to where the CD was for using in the computer, and then flip it open and get this. It would lift up the CD that you wanted, so you could actually have them stacked reasonably close together. Doesn't get used for anything anymore because none of us have got CD drives, but it's just the right height for putting my feet on for the height that my chair is. So if you hear it rattling, that's what it is. I try not to rattle it too much. I had a Zoom meeting today. I helped somebody to change their bedding and do all that sort of stuff, just because that's one of those things you have to do from time to time. Oh, and I got a parcel this morning. I'm just wondering if I can show. No, I can't really show you the box because it's somewhere else in the house. But I got a parcel this morning. Sorry, I'm just reaching over here for a piece of information. I got a parcel this morning from our mobile phone provider because for our business we have our mobile phones on account rather than prepay. And so I got a thank you parcel from them this morning. They probably are sending it to other businesses, small businesses that are on prepay account systems with them. Sorry for all you people who are on, no, not prepay account, on account with them. So, come on, phone, camera, I mean, not phone, camera, focus. Sorry to all you people who are on prepay. It appears to be just for small businesses who have an account. So the parcel, lovely parcel. The time of year is coming up to what is called Matariki, and I probably say that completely horrifically badly, mispronounce it. Let's go word. No, say. I think that's the one. Yes. Did I say that? Did I say that right? For now, anyway, I'll probably say it differently later. See if you can spot the difference. There you go. Just one of my commands that amuses me. So I had it. I put it in, moving a few things around on the desk so I can see my list of commands. Right. Matariki. Matariki is the short explanation is that it is the Maori New Year. The Maori are the indigenous people of New Zealand who were here before Europeans arrived, and are still here, and are, as far as I can tell, generally part of our broader society, part of what adds to the colour and dimension and personality of who we are as New Zealanders. So we have, to a certain extent, taken on board certain Maori terminology for things, names, words, usages. So kia ora is a greeting. Hi. We use it like we would say hi. Kia ora is, I can't remember the exact definition for it, but I do know somebody who has the exact definition for it. They actually have a command for it in their Discord, no, not their Discord, on their Twitch channel, because they also have come across it because of somebody else that they know who is a Kiwi. This particular person is not a Kiwi, but they know somebody who is. Anyway, so in this parcel with that thank you card, which explains, thank you for being a great customer. This month is Matariki and we wanted to celebrate by sending you a gift. We've got some Te Ani Kawakawa tea, a Matariki keep cup and tea strainer to keep you warm as you watch the stars. So we have Te Ani tea made out of wild kawakawa leaves, and we have the tea strainer. It's a tea ball for putting the tea leaves in, and the keep cup, so that's one side of it, which says he kapu tea, which means the cup of tea, I think, or a cup of tea, I'm not sure which. And then on the other side it's got Te Kahui o Matariki. There you go, the stars of Matariki. I'm not sure if that's actually what Te Kahui o Matariki actually says, because I don't actually speak Maori because I'm so old that they didn't teach it at school. And I kind of regret that, but I also have such a hard time remembering words that I do know that learning a whole bunch of words that I don't know probably is by this stage a little bit of a sadly lost cause. So let's see what else it sent me. Bedtime reading is sorted with 7 kites of Matariki accompanied by some delicious cocoa chocolate. So there you go. The cocoa chocolate, it is, yes, it's got green patches on it, darker green patches, which is why you can see the background through. Cocoa, Aotearoa inspired kawakawa again, and matcha green tea, white compound chocolate, and it's got a picture of a wahine on the front cover with her kite, which is a kit bag. Wahine is a Maori woman, and a whole lot of Maori words on it, but I bet it's yum. I'm looking forward to that. It's light, it's kind of light green coloured. I saw it on their website, no, on their Instagram account. Sorry, I'm now getting warm enough that I can take that off. So in here today, in my new keep cup, my Matariki keep cup in the beautiful bright blue, it's actually not quite as bright as you're seeing it, I have my coffee for this afternoon. I just made a single shot one because I don't have very much milk, but it's great. I have my coffee ready to go. And the book that comes with the chocolate is this one, The 7 Kites of Matariki. And it is written by Calico McClintock and Dominique Ford. So Calico McClintock is the lady who wrote the story, and Dominique Ford is the lady who illustrated it. And it's lovely. It's a children's illustrated book about the origins and an origin story of Matariki. There you go. It's about these girls and their kites. And I'm looking forward to reading that. And unless I get permission from the publishers and author and illustrator, and it will need to be specific permission, I will not be reading it on stream because I don't believe that that's appropriate to take someone else's work that they should be paid for and then use it for free and let other people use it for free without them actually getting something from it. And don't tell me that publicity is payment, because it's not. You don't expect your doctor to accept publicity as payment for when they have attended to your medical needs. You don't expect your plumber or electrician to accept publicity as payment for the plumbing and electrical work that they have done to make your house function. You don't expect your builder, who might be repairing or building a house or a building for you, to accept publicity as their sole payment for the honour of building your house or fixing it. They actually need to be paid for their time because they need to be able to eat their food, because the supermarket doesn't accept publicity as payment for the food that you want to eat. So that's one of the ways of understanding why we honour copyright laws and things like that. And that kind of leads into my spiel about who I am and what I'm doing. So hi, I'm Jev. I read old children's books. Books such as this one here. Oh, and I also got some tickets for Whina, which is a movie about Dame Whina Cooper, who she's dead now, I think. I'm fairly certain she's died in my lifetime because I know of her. And she did a lot for the health and well-being of New Zealand Maori, and especially New Zealand Maori women and children. So, old children's books, such as this. This book here was given to my great uncle in 1897. Excuse me. And I grew up reading books such as that one. Ones that had been my parents and my grandparents and my aunts and uncles and great aunts and great uncles and second cousins once, twice and three times removed, all those sort of relatives. Ones who had had books given to them as gifts when they were younger, probably. I grew up reading all of those sort of books, and it was wonderful because it really opened up my mind and my imagination to other places and other people and other ways of doing things. And helped me to gain a broader understanding of history and the world and the way we fit into it. That the world isn't just about what is here and now for us. And also travelling and living in some of these other places, it actually helped with that too. Living in a country where the building that you are living in was built before the country that you come from was first visited by Europeans. And by living in this building, it gave me a sense of continuity, of being part of the long stream of history through into future. And I think that that's something which a lot of us these days have totally forgotten about or lost. So that's one of the reasons I read old children's books. Also, people say, oh, well, you can just go and get them from the library. Well, even if it's just as an ebook. Yes and no. If a book is particularly popular, the library will still have it, either in a physical format on their shelves or in their stacks, or as an ebook. So it is available for people to keep borrowing. So there are Jane Austen books that you can still borrow from the library because they are what's considered to be a classic, because they get read so often, they get borrowed so often. They're considered to be culturally significant as part of our literary history, so to speak. But there's a lot of other books that were written around the same time frame that you've never heard of, I've never heard of, because they weren't popular enough to actually make it through, make the cut. They got lost in the cut. And also, if a book is not specifically popular, but it's a new book, if it's been published within the last 3 years, it's got a much higher likelihood of actually being on the shelves at the library or in the ebooks in the library's digital system. But a lot of the books that I read are not in that category. For their own type of book, I would consider some of them to be classics. Not all of them, but some of them definitely, especially because they might epitomise a particular worldview and a particular writing style. But to actually be able to borrow them from our local library, not really. But the one advantage we do have with that is that there are some people who have decided that books that are no longer held within copyright because their authors have died so long ago, and they are now what is considered to be public domain books, are actually available to be read. But you need to know where to find them so that you can read them. So there are some books written by a New Zealand author that I would dearly love to read to you, but unless I actually have a copy myself, I'm not going to be able to because they have not been digitised and made available to the general public. If I manage to be able to get a hold of a copy of any of those ones, then I shall read them to you, because these are books that are definitely technically in the public domain. They just are not available digitally for me to be able to do that. But most of the ones that I have been reading up until now have actually been digital copies of old children's books, such as the one that we're reading now. Now there's an icon, an image up there if you're watching this over on Twitch, not YouTube, that has a picture of one of the early versions of the cover of this current book, The Story of the Amulet. And it's what they used to call cloth bound. So it's a hardback book, and then it has a fabric wrapping around the cardboard that's used to make the hard cover. And then that cloth has like a paint coating, and then pressed into that paint coating is the gold coloured lettering and image design that you actually see in that image up there. That's just part of the way that they used to make those sort of books. So if you grew up with that sort of thing and you go to a second-hand shop, such as an op shop, we call a certain type of a charity shop, or the equivalent of Goodwill if you're in North America, if you're in the States, we would call an op shop or an opportunity shop. And it's a place where usually there's a charity or a church or some other service organisation is running a shop that sells second-hand goods, and they are not expensive. Unlike some second-hand shops that sell high quality but expensive goods, the op shops usually are a lot cheaper. But if you go to one of those sort of shops and you see a certain style of book cover, and you are a book lover and have grown up with old books, you'll often recognise something just because of the style of the cover. And so you go and investigate, and you may actually discover that here's one of the books that you really want to read. So I am keeping my eyes out for some of these ones that I haven't got a copy of. Eventually, I am also going to be unpacking some boxes that have books in, some of which are older books and some of which are newer books, and be able to use those physical copies to read to you, because they are books that are in public domain. I will not be reading ones that aren't, unless I have express permission to do so. So that's what I do, and the reason why is because I would like everybody else to have the same fun experience of having their mind expanded, even through children's books, but also have somewhere that's something we can do that is reasonably calm, reasonably safe, reasonably suitable for sharing across generations, rather than having to worry about the language content of it, and things like that. The nearest we get to things that are being inappropriate are some of the attitudes from old eras, are not our attitudes, attitudes to other people, other times, other even just the attitude of men towards women and gender roles and that sort of thing is definitely not really our sort of attitude that we need these days, the ones that we are quite proud to have grown into. But we still read the books that have those things in, not because we're glorifying those attitudes, but because it helps us to actually see how, as a society, we have changed, we have improved, but we can keep improving, but also to see just in what ways people are different or were different to what they are now. And that's all part of what helps us to understand others, is actually being able to recognise that people at a different time had a different attitude to what we have now. And that's okay. Yes, it would have been better if they had a different attitude, but we're not going to rewrite history just because it wasn't the way we want it to be. It's not worth it. You never learn from it if you rewrite it to suit what you want. Sorry. And I got onto that for some reason. I can't remember what it was. Oh yeah, water. I was having a drink of water. So I do have 3 tips for people who have never been here before. Those who have been here before will be able to say it with me. Tip 1, make sure you have something to drink. Tip 2, make sure you have something to snack on. Oh, maybe I could have some of my new chocolate. And tip 3 is have somewhere comfortable to sit, or something comfortable to sit with. This is my Quest Sprout. He's lovely. My reading buddy. He streams with me. And I've got a lovely comfy cushion there, that purple thing. Get somewhere comfortable to sit so you can actually just relax. Sorry, trying to prop up this cushion again because it's skating all over the floor. Don't want to trip over it. Get yourself somewhere comfortable to sit, something to drink, something to eat, so you can actually just relax and enjoy the story. And all the asides, yes, there are a lot of asides. I explain things, I get mucked up on words sometimes. I sometimes get completely distracted and go off on rabbit trails. That's life. That's the way it is. That's part of the way my brain works. And it can be part of the fun of actually just being here, part of me reading and discovering these strange things that go on in my mind. You never know. It's just part of life. That's okay. Anyway, so I'm about to start reading. I just need to get something up on my other monitor that I forgot to do before, but I've remembered the rest, I think. I think I've remembered the rest. I probably need to check. I have a feeling that there's something else I'm supposed to be doing that I have forgotten about. That's meant to be there. Yes, I've got that there now. And we shall start reading in just a moment. Trying to think of if I remember anything else. Yes. We are all okay for talking to each other. That's great. I think that's it. I can't think of anything else right at the moment. I just have a mouthful of my coffee while I remember. Right. Okay, we'll get back to reading because that's what we're here for. Otherwise, why bother being here? Kind of. Anyway, Codex. I didn't tell you about Codex. So Codex is a group of readers who all read like me, who all read public domain books. Yes, my keyboard is very loud in my microphone. So Codex, I've just given you the link for the Codex Discord server, which you are most welcome to join. The Discord server is not just for readers, it's actually for anyone who's interested in old books, old stories, that sort of thing. So the Codex Discord server is where we get together and chat, because you can't really chat with other people on Twitch if they're not currently on Twitch, because they can't see the words when they come back to Twitch. That's one of the quirks of Twitch. So what we do is we use Discord, which is, if you are an older person like myself or even older, Discord is a little bit like bulletin boards and forums, but with some other ways of functioning. And if you get a link for a Discord server, you click on the link and then you sign into your Discord account and accept that invitation, and it allows you to access that server. That server is like an overall forum or bulletin board on a particular subject or about particular people. And then there are sub-forums, except that they're called channels, and each of the channels will have a specific purpose and it will have information about that. It's easier than finding your way around Facebook, because Facebook doesn't actually have separate sections like that within a page or a group. And some people don't like being involved with the Facebook environment. Anyway, so Codex, all these readers, a great bunch of people. Not everybody just reads. A lot of the readers actually also play different games live when they're streaming. Some of them do reading on one day and they do game streaming on another. Some of them just randomly whenever they feel like it. Most read just normal books that are written with chapters and stuff like that. They're all public domain books that they're reading, or ones that they have express permission to read, such as one of the readers is actually also an author, and so they will often read pieces of their story because they have given themselves permission to do so. Sorry, pardon me. Some of them read children's books as well as adults' books. As far as I know, I'm the only one who only reads children's books. Sorry. It's just one of those things. I haven't yet taken to gaming online. I didn't used to have a computer that could cope with it. I don't play point and shoot games, RPGs, role play games. I don't play first person shooters, FPSs, or most of the other things that people get excited about watching other people play and being the best at. I tend to play point and click adventure games, and I do that in my own time when I'm not streaming, because I haven't yet figured out how to make it so it works on my stream and people can still talk to me and interact. Eventually I will do a new overlay, and it will have a reading imagination stories type idea. In the meantime, we work with what we have. I then transfer my stories over to YouTube, and some of our Codex readers have a similar plan where they will read on Twitch. You can look at the videos of it, for most of them, on Twitch for up to 2 weeks afterwards. Sometimes if you're a partner, you can actually keep them longer, and some people do. And then some of us also transfer our stories over to YouTube. Me, I put mine into playlists so that you can go and actually listen to a whole book. I do not edit them except to remove anything outside of my video window. So you will still get all of this random as chat every time I start reading. You will also get the random as interruptions that happen and me getting lost in the middle of a page. I think I have twice actually edited a video for YouTube, but that was to remove something that was inappropriate that was happening, because at that stage I didn't remove the overlay. And we had about 10 minutes of just me sitting there looking at the camera and looking at my monitor, because my old computer just was having a hissy fit, and it was letting me still stream, but it wouldn't let me do anything else at the time to be able to deal with the inappropriate stuff that was happening with inappropriate chatters, because at that stage I didn't know about dealing with how to deal with certain things, and I've learnt a lot. Anyway, so I'm going to say hi to Ken, soft-spoken, who you may be able to see in the chat there, who has just said hi to me as well, and everybody else here, is one of our Codex readers. So I'm going to give you Ken's channel info as a shout-out. And it worked, yay. Sorry, I'm always so excited when I put something in there and it kind of works. So Ken's one of the ones who reads and also plays games. There you go. And if you want to catch up with any of the other readers who are part of Codex, I've got links to them all down below my video window, or if you are looking at this on as a recording on Twitch, then it will be on my about page. You go there and there's links to all at the names of and the links for all of the different Codex readers that are currently part of the group. So there you go, do that. But do keep listening to the story as well. Open up another tab on your browser so you can listen while you're opening up the different channels. As far as I know, I'm the only one in New Zealand. The nearest in time zone to me is one of the other readers is in Japan. We have a really wide range of what people do with their daily lives, because we don't all spend all of our time on Twitch. So I do business stuff for our business that we run from our home. Business isn't really helping you at all. My husband makes things out of wood. I take photographs of them and put them onto our website, and then we sell them. It's one of the things we do. So that's one of the things I do with my time away from Twitch. We have others who are school teachers and office workers, and we have an audiobook reader, someone who actually does this for a job, but the difference between is that it has to be perfect. Well, kind of. I like listening to audiobooks, but I would be terrible at recording them because I don't like going back over things and trying to get the good bit of it the same and then correct the bit that I got wrong, and not keep doing the wrong thing again and again and again, and not getting distracted like I do. Anyway, all of those sort of things. I think we've got somebody who's a voice actor and also does other acting as well. So many different things. Ken, if you want to, you're welcome to just tell the others what you do. You don't have to, that's fine. And for those who are watching on YouTube, I'll probably read out the comment if he does make a comment about it. But like I say, he doesn't need to if he doesn't want to. So yeah, there's a really wide variety of readers what we do and what we read too. So what about I just get on with reading, eh? Since that's what you're here for. Right. Oh, Ken says, I was an architect. Life changes has shifted me to narrating. Ah, okay. Another one who narrates. Cool. I used to, in another life, real life, in my other part of my real life, I was an architectural draftsperson. I used to say I was a draftsman, just because I wanted the focus to be on the job, not on the gender of the person doing the job. And at that stage, if I had said I was a draftswoman, I would have had to actually fight to be not spoken over all the time. If I just said I was a draftsman, people just accepted that that was the job I did. So I used to draw house plans and things like that for architects. Never wanted to do anything bigger than houses just because I didn't have the right way of thinking to make it work. But houses, good. I was able to pick up when we had an architect who forgot to leave room for a hot water cylinder for the water supply in their house. Because the houses in New Zealand at the time, you had a cylinder, an electric cylinder that heated the water to supply it for the rest of your house. We didn't have a gas calefont or anything like that. And me, the draftsman, had to tell him, where are we going to put this hot water cylinder? Because I do think that they want to have a hot bath from time to time, not just a cold one. And then same architect forgot to leave room for the full-sized bath that the client had specifically requested go into this house. And the layout they had given me for the bathroom just would not allow a full-size bath to fit, and it was then up to the architect to have to change it. But I did have a great relationship to the architects that we had. It's just that it was one of those amusing things that happened. Draftsman. I used to spell it the second way, Draughtsman, because of coming from an British English background rather than a North American English background. Although these days spell it with an F and a T instead of a GHT, just because that's the way it was. Anyway, yes, the cat spelling for you. I know exactly how that feels. We have our daughter's cat living with us, and when he was still exploring the house, when he realised he was going to be living with us instead of just visiting for the weekend, he decided he was going to sit on my desk, this is before I was streaming, and investigate my keyboard. So he was sitting above the keyboard on the main part of the desk, reaching down to the keyboard below and licking the keys and then having a chew on them. Thankfully I wasn't doing anything at the time. Yes, cat spelling for you. I totally understand that. So yes, that's the way I used to spell draftsman. Right, so shall we get on with reading? Yes. The Story of the Amulet by Edith Nesbit, Chapter 13, The Shipwreck on the Tin Islands. Wonder what's going to happen here, apart from actually having a shipwreck. Why are they called the Tin Islands? I don't think it's because they're made out of tin. Maybe it's where they actually mine tin. That's what tin, the ore for making tin as a metal, the rock form of it, is mined or quarried. Maybe that's what the islands are named for. Right, here we go. We've had a turn of going into the future and it didn't really help, did it? So we'll see what's going to happen now. Blue and red, said Jane softly, make purple. Jane's the youngest of the 4 children that are in this story. Not always they don't, said Cyril. It has to be crimson lake and Prussian blue. If you mix vermilion and indigo, you get the most loathsome slate colour. So the names of the colours he's using are the names that were commonly used in a set of watercolours. The way the children would have had watercolours is probably... Yes, my keyboard is very noisy. I'll just see if I can find something that's going to show me the right sort of picture so you can see what I'm talking about. And the reason why this is important for me to share it with you is because in my mind I have, when I'm reading these things, because I'm probably a lot closer to their age than what most of my listeners are, I have certain pictures in my head from my own past experience. And so because those are in my head, I see it and it distracts me until I can get it out of my head. And the way I get it out of my head is by sharing it with other people. Actually, no, it was probably oil paint that they were talking about for colours. Oil paints. Really random. Yeah. No. Thank you. You will have seen this sort of thing before. I know you will have. But the reason I'm getting this for you is so that my brain will let me get on with the rest of the story, because otherwise it's not going to let me. Trust me on that. That's just the way my brain works. It can be frustrating, but it can have some great benefits sometimes. Just that's life, I suppose. It allows me to hyper-focus on some things that other people have no idea what it's like to live with that level of focus. But you can learn about things and be totally absorbed in them. So this is how oil colours used to come for most people. These are a Dutch brand, so they've got, that says blue in Dutch. But they would have had names on them that were the equivalent of where these names are. It would have said things like Prussian blue, Crimson Lake, or Vermilion, and indigo. Indigo is a very, very dark bluish purple. And so what Cyril is saying is that the particular combination of versions of those colours in the paint tubes, when you mix them up, you squirt them out onto a palette or a saucer or whatever you're allowed to squirt them out onto, the particular colour combinations you end up with very largely dictates how good the quality of the colour is and how much it is like what theoretically you know supposedly it's able to, what sort of colour it's able to produce. So yeah, he's quite right, but then so is Jane. Red and blue make purple. In theory, red and blue make purple, but it depends on the red and it depends on the blue. So, and I had to actually put everything back together again so I could find it for the next picture, because otherwise we'll miss out on all the pictures like we did the other week. So, not always they don't, said Cyril. It has to be Crimson Lake and Prussian blue, and you can look those colours up too, by the way. Crimson Lake, Prussian blue, vermilion, and indigo, real colours, common names for specific hues. Sepia is the nastiest colour in the box, I think, said Jane, sucking her brush. Sepia is a type of brown. Yellowish brown, kind of. Old-fashioned photographs that were not black and white based were often referred to as being sepia coloured, and it's that sort of, you know, have you seen old photographs that instead of being black and white or grey, that had that browny tinge to everything? That is sepia. They were all painting. Nurse, in the flush of grateful emotion because they had made her a thank you card, excited by Robert's border of poppies, because he had painted poppies on the card, had presented each of the four with a shilling paint box and had supplemented the gift with a pile of old copies of the Illustrated London News. So that's an old magazine. Probably meant that they could actually have paper that they could paint all over and colour in the pictures and stuff like that. Great that you're lurking. Thanks, Ken. Good to have you here. Where was I up to? I was getting distracted by what I was saying before I realised that Ken said he was lurking. Here we go. She had supplemented the gift with a pile of old copies of the Illustrated London News. Sepia said Cyril instructively, is made out of beastly cuttlefish. Cuttlefish are related to squid and octopus, and you can find out about sepia if you want. I think it's to do with their ink, but I'm not sure. You could have a look and find out if you're interested. Purple's made out of a fish as well as out of red and blue, said Robert. Tyrian purple was, I know that. Tyrian, Tyrian. I think sometimes it had an H in it as well. Tyrhian. Out of lobsters, said Jane dreamily. They're red when they're boiled and blue when they aren't. If you mixed live and dead lobsters, you'd get Tyrian purple. That's an odd thought. I shouldn't like to mix anything with a live lobster. Excuse me. I hope that didn't deafen you. Sudden itch in the nose and a need to sneeze. I shouldn't like to mix anything with a live lobster, said Anthea, shuddering. So you've met most of the children now? Yes, all of them. Cyril, oldest. Anthea, second oldest. Robert, third oldest, and Jane, the youngest of these four. There is one younger child who is with mother overseas at the moment because mother is taking a rest to get well again. Well, there aren't any other red and blue fish, said Jane. You'd have to. I'd rather not have the purple, said Anthea. The Tyrian purple wasn't that colour when it came out of the fish, nor yet afterwards. It wasn't, said Robert. It was scarlet, really, and the Roman emperors wore it, and it wasn't any nice colour while the fish had it. It was a yellowish-white consistent liquid of a creamy consistency. How do you know? Asked Cyril. I read it, said Robert, with the meek pride of superior knowledge. Where? Said Cyril. In print, said Robert, still more proudly meek. You think everything's true if it's printed, said Cyril, naturally annoyed. But it isn't. Father said so. Quite a lot of lies get printed, especially in newspapers. You see, as it happens, said Robert, in what was really a rather annoying tone, it wasn't a newspaper. It was in a book. How sweet Chinese white is, said Jane, dreamily sucking her brush again. I do hope they're non-toxic paints. I have heard that, though, that Chinese white, I can't remember what they made the colour from. It may have been titanium dioxide or titanium oxide or something like that. I don't know. Was, for some reason, sweet. And that's mentioned in another children's book, which is not one I can read here, but I love it very much. And that is Indigo Star. Have a look for that one. How sweet Chinese white is, said Jane, dreamily sucking her brush again. I don't believe it, said Cyril to Robert about the colour. Have a suck yourself, suggested Robert. I don't mean about the Chinese white, I mean about the cream fish turning purple and... Oh, cried Anthea, jumping up very quickly. I'm tired of painting. Let's go somewhere by Amulet. I say, let's let it choose. That's a thought. Cyril and Robert agreed that this was an idea. Jane consented to stop painting because, as she said, Chinese white, though certainly sweet, gives you a queer feeling in the back of the throat if you paint with it too long. I think that's because she's been ingesting too much Chinese white. The amulet was held up. Take us somewhere, said Jane. Anywhere you like in the past, but somewhere where you are. Then she said the word. Next moment everyone felt a queer rocking and swaying, something like what you feel when you're out on a fishing boat. And that was not wonderful when you come to think of it, for it was in a boat that they found themselves. A queer boat with high bulwarks pierced with holes for oars to go through. There was a high seat for the steersman, and the prow was shaped like the head of some great animal with big staring eyes. The boat rode at anchor in a bay, and the bay was very smooth. Sorry, I'm just trying to find where I've got my pictures so I can see what the next one is meant to be. Because I've got the picture ready, but I need to know what it's of, so I know when to show it to you, don't I? Okay, right, cool. boat rode at anchor in a bay, and the bay was very smooth. The crew were dark, wiry fellows with black beards and hair. They had no clothes except a tunic from waist to knee, and round caps with knobs on top. They were very busy, and what they were doing was so interesting to the children that at first they did not even wonder where the amulet had brought them. That's very interesting for them then. And the children seemed too busy to notice the crew seemed too busy to notice the children. They were fastening rush baskets to a long rope. Here we go, here's the picture. They were fastening rush baskets, such as this one here, to a long rope. See, there's a guy up there holding on to one. Oh, Aunt, I'm so sorry to hear you got diagnosed with COVID. Yes, just relax, just chill, just lurk and let the words drift over you, and hopefully you'll be able to rest and even sleep, because resting and sleeping is what helps you to get better quicker and more thoroughly. So I'm really sorry to hear that, but I'm really delighted that you've got something that you can do to keep your mind occupied when you are able to focus enough for it. Just enjoy it. Just let the words drift by. Don't worry about trying to actually follow the story. Just let the sounds drift. Anyway, I'll carry on reading, but thank you for letting me know that you're here. It's great to see you. What they were doing, they were very busy, and what they were doing was so interesting to the children that at first they did not even wonder where the amulet had brought them, and the crew seemed too busy to notice the children. They were fastening rush baskets to a long rope with a great piece of cork at the end. And in each basket they put mussels or little frogs. Then they cast out the rope, and the basket sank, but the cork floated. Oh, so they're a closed basket with mussels and little frogs in the basket, and then they've got a cork that floats at the top. That's what those are. Not just like a flat basket, woven platter type basket. Then they cast out the rope, the basket sank, but the cork floated, and all about on the blue water were other boats, and all the crews of all the boats were busy with ropes and baskets and frogs and mussels. How peculiar. Oh, we're going to have to keep reading so we can find out what else is going on. Whatever are you doing? Jane suddenly asked a man who had rather more clothes than the others and seemed to be a sort of captain or overseer. He started and stared at her, but he had seen too many strange lands to be very much surprised at these oddly dressed stowaways. Setting lines for the dye shellfish, he said. How did you get here? A sort of magic, said Robert, carelessly. The captain fingered an amulet that hung around his neck. What is this place? Asked Cyril. Tyre, of course, said the man. Then he drew back and spoke in a low voice to one of the sailors. Now we shall know about your precious cream jug fish, said Cyril. Oh. But we never said come to Tyre, said Jane. The amulet heard us talking, I expect. I think it most obliging of it, said Anthea. And the amulet's here too, said Robert. We ought to be able to find it in a little ship like this. I wonder which of them's got it. Oh, look, look, cried Anthea suddenly. On the bare chest of one of the sailors gleamed something red. It was the exact counterpart of their precious half-amulet. A silence full of emotion was broken by Jane. Then we've found it, she said. Oh, do let's take it and go home. Easy to say take it, said Cyril. He looks very strong. He did, yet not so strong as the other sailors. Just a moment, checking for the next picture. Right page, right place on the page. Right, yeah, cool. That's odd, said Anthea musingly. I do believe I've seen that man somewhere before. Ooh, somewhere before. That man. I wonder who that man is. He's rather like our learned gentleman, said Robert, but I'll tell you who he's much more like. At this moment, that sailor looked up. his eyes met Robert's, and Robert and the others had no longer any doubt as to where they had seen him before. It was Rekmara, the priest who had led them to the palace of Pharaoh, and whom Jane had looked back at through the arch when he was counselling Pharaoh's guard to take the jewels and fly for his life. Ooh, maybe this is where he fled to. Nobody was quite pleased, and nobody quite knew why. Jane voiced the feelings of all when she said, fingering their amulet through the folds of her frock, "We can go back in a minute if anything nasty happens." For a moment, nothing worse happened than an offer of food, figs and cucumbers it was, and very pleasant. They would be fresh figs, probably. If it's the season of the year when you're having cucumbers, I would say they would be fresh figs. "I see," said the captain, "that you are from a far country. Since you have honoured my boat by appearing on it, you must stay here till morning. Then I will lead you to one of our great ones. He loves strangers from far lands." "Let's go home," Jane whispered. "All the frogs are drowning now. I think the people here are cruel." But the boys wanted to stay and see the lines taken up in the morning. "It's just like eel pots and lobster pots," said Cyril. "The basket's only open from the outside. I vote we stay." So they stayed. "That's Tyre over there," said the captain, who was evidently trying to be civil. He pointed to a great island rock that rose steeply from the sea, crowned with huge walls and towers. There was another city on the mainland. "That's part of Tyre, too," said the captain. "It's where the great merchants have their pleasure houses and gardens and farms." "Look, look!" cried Cyril suddenly. "What a lovely little ship!" A ship in full sail was passing swiftly through the fishing fleet. The captain's face changed. He frowned and his eyes blazed with fury. "Insolent young barbarian," he cried, "do you call the ships of Tyre little? None greater sail the seas. That ship has been on a 3 years' voyage. She is known in all the great trading ports from here to the Tin Islands. She comes back rich and glorious. Her very anchor is of silver." Oh, he was very offended, wasn't he? "I'm sure we beg your pardon," said Anthea hastily. "In our country we say little for a pet name. Your wife might call you her dear little husband, you know." "I should like to catch her at it," growled the captain, but he stopped scowling, so the idea's sinking in. "It's a rich trade," he went on, "for cloth once dipped, second best glass, and the rough images our young artists carve for practice. The barbarian king in Tessos lets us work the silver mines. We get so much silver there that we leave them our iron anchors and come back with silver ones." "How splendid," said Robert. "Do go on. What's cloth once dipped?" "You must be barbarians from the outer darkness," said the captain scornfully. "All wealthy nations know that our finest stuffs are twice dyed debaptha. They're only for the robes of kings and priests and princes." "What do the rich merchants wear?" asked Jane with interest. "In the pleasure houses. They wear the debaptha. I don't know how I meant to say that. I've never come across this word before. Dye, I think, as in two, dye, and by are both two. Dibaptha. "Our merchants are princes," scowled the skipper. "Oh, don't be cross. We do so like hearing about things. We want to know all about the dyeing," said Anthea cordially. "Oh, you do you?" growled the man. "So that's what you're here for. Well, you won't get the secrets of the dye trade out of me." He went away and everyone felt snubbed and uncomfortable. And all the time the long, narrow eyes of the Egyptian were watching. They felt as though he was watching them through the darkness when they lay down to sleep on a pile of cloaks. Next morning the baskets were drawn up full of what looked like whelk shells. Whelks are one of those twisty shells, and they're not usually huge. I'll get that word for you. Dibaptha. Dibaptha. And then we'll see how that goes. Thank you. Next morning the baskets were drawn up full of what looked like whelk shells. The children were rather in the way, but they made themselves as small as they could. While the skipper was at the other end of the boat, they did ask one question of a sailor whose face was a little less unkind than the others. Yes, he answered, this is the dye fish. It is a sort of murex, and there is another kind that they catch at Sidon, and then, of course, there's the kind that's used for the jevvv. But that's quite different. It's, hold your tongue, shouted the skipper. And the man held it. Didn't want to lose his job, did he? The Laden Boat was rowed slowly round the end of the island and was made fast in one of the two great harbours that lay inside a long breakwater. Reddit says it's a word for the book that can mean it seems to be related to receiving a second baptism, a clear metaphor in this case. Yeah, I think so. Double dipped twice. And I'm pretty sure that that makes sense. Die or dip, whatever. Dibaptha, dipbaptha, whatever. Something like that. Sorry about the weird pronunciation. Where do we get to? The harbour. Two great harbours that lay inside a long breakwater. The harbour was full of all sorts of ships, so that Cyril and Robert enjoyed themselves much more than their sisters, because the sisters weren't at all interested in boats. The breakwater and the quays were heaped with bales and baskets and crowded with slaves and sailors. Further along, some men were practising diving. That's jolly good, said Robert. Here we go, here's your next picture. That's jolly good, said Robert, as a naked brown body cleft the water. So the children are over here on this boat. There's the side of the boat which has the holes through it for the oars. And then this is one of the quays and someone's diving in. And he's just got a wrap around his loins and everything else is just bare, which would be very unusual to the children because they come from the late Victorian or early Edwardian, or maybe even late Edwardian. Children wore a lot of clothes back then, which is why there's sometimes references to them being oddly dressed. That's jolly good, said Robert, as a naked brown body cleft the water. I should think so, said the skipper. The pearl divers of Persia are not more skilful. Why, we've got a freshwater spring that comes out at the bottom of the sea. Our divers dive down and bring up the fresh water in skin bottles. Can your barbarian divers do as much? I suppose not, said Robert, and put away a wild desire to explain to the captain the English system of waterworks, pipes, taps, and the intricacies of the plumber's trade. Probably a good idea that he didn't bother trying to explain that and effectively show off to the captain. As they neared the quay, the skipper made a hasty toilet, looking after his appearance. He did his hair, combed his beard, put on a garment like a jersey with short sleeves, an embroidered belt, a necklace of beads, and a big signet ring. Because when you're working out doing the fishing stuff, you don't wear quite such fancy things, obviously. Now, said he, I'm fit to be seen. Come along. Where to? Said Jane cautiously. To Feliz, the great sea captain, said the skipper, the man I told you of, who loves barbarians. Then Rek Mara came forward and, for the first time, spoke. I have known these children in another land, he said. You know my powers of magic. It was my magic that brought these barbarians to your boat, and you know how they will profit you. I read your thoughts. Let me come with you and see the end of them. Then I will work the spell I promised you in return for the little experience you have so kindly given me on your boat. The skipper looked at the Egyptian with some disfavour. So it was your doing, he said. I might have guessed it. Well, come on. So he came, and the girls wished he hadn't. But Robert whispered, Nonsense, as long as he's with us, we've got some chance of the amulet. We can always fly if anything goes wrong. The morning was so fresh and bright. Their breakfast had been so good and so unusual. They had actually seen the amulet round the Egyptian's neck. One or two or all of these things suddenly raised the children's spirits. They went off quite cheerfully through the city gate. It was not arched, but roofed over with a great flat stone, and so through the street, which smelt horribly of fish and garlic and 1,000 other things, even less agreeable. But far worse than the street scents was the scent of the factory where the skipper called in to sell his night catch. I wish I could tell you all about that factory, but I haven't time, and perhaps after all you aren't interested. In dyeing works, I will only mention that Robert was triumphantly proved to be right. The dye was a yellowish-white liquid of creamy consistency, and it smelt more strongly of garlic than garlic itself does. While the skipper was bargaining with the master of the dye works, the Egyptian came close to the children and said suddenly and softly, "Trust me." "I wish we could," said Anthea. "You feel," said the Egyptian, "that I want your amulet. That makes you distrust me." "Yes," said Cyril bluntly, "but you also want my amulet, and I am trusting you." "There's something to that," said Robert. "We have the two halves of the amulet," said the priest, "but not yet the pin that joined them. Our only chance of getting that is to remain together. Once part these two halves, and they may never be found in the same time and place. Be wise. Our interests are the same." Before anyone could say more, the skipper came back, and with him the dye master. His hair and beard were curled like the men's in Babylon, and he was dressed like the skipper, but with the added grandeur of gold and embroidery. He had necklaces of beads and silver, and a glass amulet with a man's face, very like his own, set between two bulls' heads, as well as gold and silver bracelets and armlets. He looked keenly at the children. Then he said, "My brother Pheles has just come back from Tarshish. He's at his garden house, unless he's hunting wild boar in the marshes. He gets frightfully bored on shore." "Ah," said the skipper, "he's a true-born Phoenician. Tyre, Tyre forever. Oh, Tyre rules the waves, as the old song says. I'll go at once and show him my young barbarians." Tyre in this context is spelt Tyre. "I should," said the dye master. "They are very rum, aren't they? What frightful clothes, and what a lot of them." Clothing. "Observe the covering of their feet. Hideous indeed." Sorry, I've got a bit of fluff itching my eye, I think. Sometimes I can't see them when I look for them in the mirror, because the cat that we have has some of his fur is extra fine, and you have to get the light just right and be very close to the mirror to be able to see the fluff that he has left behind. And I wouldn't even be able to show this to you. It's so fine. But that was what was tickling me. There you go. Done. Right. "Observe the covering of their feet. Hideous indeed." Robert could not help thinking how easy and at the same time pleasant it would be to catch hold of the dye master's feet and tip him backward into the great sunken vat just near him. But if he had, flight would have had to be the next move. So he restrained his impulse. Robert doesn't like feeling like he's been insulted. Yes. There was something about this Tyrian adventure that was different from all the others. It was somehow calmer, more calm. I would have been told that's how you had to say it when I was growing up. Not calmer, more calm. I still can't remember what the rules are for which one's which. It just sounds better, I suppose. And there was the undoubted fact that the charm was there on the neck of the Egyptian. So they enjoyed everything to the full. The row from the island city to the shore, the ride on the donkeys that the skipper hired at the gate of the mainland city, and the pleasant country, palms and figs and cedars all about. It was like a garden. Clematis, honeysuckle and jasmine clung about the olive and mulberry trees. It would have smelt good. And there were tulips and gladioli and clumps of mandrake. I don't know about the tulips, because tulips, as far as I know, need a colder climate to grow. They don't grow in the part of New Zealand I'm in, except for very, very new breeds that are specifically bred for our damp and warm humidity. Doesn't get as cold as they like in winter either. So I don't know about this tulips bit, but otherwise I think generally most of her information has been reasonably correct. I'll get ready with the next picture too while I'm trying to get my mind focused on the right part of the story. Right. There were tulips and gladiolus and clumps of mandrake, which has bell flowers that look as though they were cut out of dark blue jewels. In the distance were the mountains of Lebanon. The house they came to at last was rather like a bungalow, long and low with pillars all along the front. That's the difference. Cedars and sycamores grew near it and sheltered it pleasantly. Everyone dismounted and the donkeys were led away. "Why is this like Rocheville?" whispered Robert, and instantly supplied the answer, "Because it's the place to spend a happy day." And I have no idea what that references to. I would imagine that it was a joke at the time. "It's jolly decent of the skipper to have brought us to such a ripping place," said Cyril. "Do you know," said Anthea, "this feels more real than anything else we've seen. It's like a holiday in the country, at home." It's probably because of this wide range of flowers and trees and stuff. The children were left alone in a dark hall. The floor was mosaic, done with wonderful pictures of ships and sea beasts and fishes. Through an open doorway they could see a pleasant courtyard with flowers. "I should like to spend a week here," said Jane, "and donkey ride every day." Everyone was feeling very jolly. Even the Egyptian looked pleasanter than usual, and then, quite suddenly, the skipper came back with a joyous smile. With him came the master of the house. He looked steadily at the children and nodded twice. "Yes," he said, "my steward will pay you the price, but I shall not pay that high rate for the Egyptian dog." The two passed on. "This," said the Egyptian, "is a pretty kettle of fish." "What is?" asked the children at once. "Our present position," said Rekmara. "Our seafaring friend," he added, "has sold us all for slaves." A hasty council succeeded the shock of this announcement. That means it followed. That sort of use of the word succeeded. The priest was allowed to take part in it. His advice was to stay because they were in no danger, and the amulet, in its completeness, must be somewhere near, or of course they could not have come to that place at all. And after some discussion they agreed to this. The children were treated more as guests than as slaves, but the Egyptian was sent to the kitchen and made to work. Pheles, the master of the house, went off that very evening by the king's orders to start on another voyage. And when he was gone, his wife found the children amusing company, and kept them talking and singing and dancing till quite late. "To distract my mind from my sorrows," she said. "I do like being a slave," remarked Jane cheerfully as they curled up on the big soft cushions that were to be their beds. It was black night when they were awakened, each by a hand passed softly over its face, and a low voice that whispered, "Be quiet, or all is lost." So they were quiet. "It's me, Rekmara, the priest of Amun," said the whisperer. "The man who brought us has gone to sea again, and he has taken my amulet from me by force. And I know no magic to get it back. Is there magic for that in the amulet you bear?" Everyone was instantly awake now. "We can go after him," said Cyril, leaping up, "but he might take ours as well, or he might be angry with us for following him." "I'll see to that," said the Egyptian in the dark. "Hide your amulet well." There in the deep blackness of that room in the Tyrian country house, the amulet was once more held up and the word spoken. All passed through onto a ship that tossed and tumbled on a wind-blown sea. They crouched together there till morning. And Jane and Cyril were not at all well, seasick. When the dawn showed, dove-coloured, across the steely waves, they stood up as well as they could for the tumbling of the ship. Pheles, that hardy sailor and adventurer, turned quite pale when he turned round suddenly and saw them. "Well," he said, "well, I never did." "Master," said the Egyptian, bowing low, and that was even more difficult than standing up, "we are here by the magic of the sacred amulet that hangs around your neck." "I never did," replied Felez. "Well, well." "What port is the ship bound for?" asked Robert with a nautical air. But Felez said, "Are you a navigator?" Robert had to own that he was not. "Then," said Felez, "I don't mind telling you that we're bound for the Tin Isles." He didn't want them to know if he was a navigator, didn't want Robert to know if he was a navigator, in case he was going to use this information for his own gain against the city that that the sailor comes from, I would guess. The Tin Isles. Tyre alone knows where the Tin Isles are. It is a splendid secret we keep from all the world. It is a great thing to us, as your magic is to you. He spoke in quite a new voice and seemed to respect both the children and the amulet a good deal more than he had done before. "The king sent you, didn't he?" said Jane. "Yes," answered Felez. "He bade me set sail with 50 brave gentlemen and this crew. You shall go with us and see many wonders." He bowed and left them. "What are we going to do now?" said Robert, when Felez had caused them to be left along with a breakfast of dried fruits and a sort of hard biscuit. "Wait till he lands in the Tin Isles," said Rekmara. "Then we can get the barbarians to help us." So Felez had made sure that they had a meal. Remember, because it said that he was kind of a lot more respectful of them. "When shall we... Wait till he lands in the Tin Isles," said Rekmara. "Then we can get the barbarians to help us. We will attack him by night and tear the sacred amulet from his accursed heathen neck," he added, grinding his teeth. "When shall we get to the Tin Isles?" asked Jane. "Oh, 6 months, perhaps a year." "Perhaps a year," said the Egyptian cheerfully. "A year of this!" cried Jane, and Cyril, who was still feeling far too unwell to care about breakfast, hugged himself miserably and shuddered. It was Robert who said, "Look here, we can shorten that year. Jane, out with the amulet. Wish that we were where the amulet will be when the ship is 20 miles from the Tin Island. That'll give us time to mature our plans." It was done, the work of a moment, and there they were on the same ship between grey and northern sky and grey northern sea. The sun was shining in a pale yellow line. It was the same ship, but it was changed. And so were the crew. Weather-worn and dirty were the sailors, and their clothes torn and ragged. And the children saw that, of course, though they had skipped the 9 months, the ship had had to live through them. Felez looked thinner, and his face was rugged and anxious. "Ha!" he cried, "the charm has brought you back. I have prayed to it daily these 9 months, and now you are here. Have you no magic that can help?" "What is it? What is your need?" asked the Egyptian quietly. "I need a great wave that shall whelm away the foreign ship that follows us. A month ago it lay in wait for us by the pillars of the gods, and it follows to find out the secret of Tyre, the place of the Tin Islands." The pillars of the gods, that is the entrance to the Mediterranean from the Atlantic. That is the Straits of Gibraltar, I think. I'm fairly certain that's where it is. Sorry. The secret of Tyre, which is the place of the Tin Islands. "If I could steer by night, I could escape them yet, but tonight there will be no stars." "My magic will not serve you here," said the Egyptian. But Robert said, "My magic will not bring up great waves, but I can show you how to steer without stars." He took out the shilling compass, still fortunately in working order, that he had bought off another boy at school for 5 pence, a piece of India rubber, a strip of whalebone, and half a stick of red sealing wax. And he showed Felez how it worked, and Fellers wondered at the compass's magic truth. "I will give it to you," said Robert, "in return for that charm about your neck." Fellers made no answer. He first laughed, snatching the compass from Robert's hand, and turned away, still laughing. "Be comforted," the priest whispered. "Our time will come." The dusk deepened, and Fellers crouched beside a dim lantern, steering by the shilling compass from the Crystal Palace. So that's where the boy had got it from. There he is. There's the steering oar, and he's got the compass in his hand, and it's pitch black in the middle of the night. It looks like there's somebody up there keeping an eye out for the ship that's behind them. No one ever knew how the other ship sailed, but suddenly in the deep night the lookout man at the stern cried out in a terrible voice, "She is close upon us!" "Oh my goodness!" "And we," said Fellers, "are close to the harbour." He was silent a moment, then suddenly he altered the ship's course, and then he stood up and spoke. "Good friends and gentlemen," he said, "who are bound with me in this brave venture by our king's command, the false foreign ship is close on our heels. If we land, they land, and only the gods know whether they might not beat us in fight. And they and themselves survive to carry back the tale of Tyre's secret island, to enrich their own miserable land. Shall this be?" "Never!" cried the half-dozen men near him. The slaves were rowing hard below and could not hear his words. The Egyptian leaped upon him, suddenly, fiercely, as a wild beast leaps. "Give me back my amulet!" he cried, and caught at the charm. The chain that held it snapped, and it lay in the priest's hand. Fellers laughed, standing balanced to the leap of the ship that answered the oar stroke. "This is no time for charms and mummeries," he said. "We've lived like men and we'll die like gentlemen, for the honour and glory of Tyre, our splendid city. Tyre, Tyre forever, it is Tyre that rules the waves. I steer her straight for the Dragon Rocks, and we go down for our city as brave men should. The creeping cowards who follow shall go down as slaves, and slaves they shall be to us when we live again. Tyre, Tyre forever!" A great shout went up, and the slaves below joined in it. "Quick, the amulet!" cried Anthea, and held it up. Rekmara held up the one he had snatched from Fellers. The word was spoken, and the two great arches grew up on the plunging ship in the shrieking wind under the dark sky. From each amulet a great and beautiful green light streamed and shone far out over the waves. It illuminated, too, the black faces and jagged teeth of the great rocks that lay not 2 ship's lengths from the boat's peaked nose. "Tyre, Tyre forever, it is Tyre that rules the waves!" The voices of the doomed rose in a triumphant shout. The children scrambled through the arch and stood trembling and blinking in the Fitzroy Street parlour, and in their ears still sounded the whistle of the wind and the rattle of the oars, the crash of the ship's bow on the rocks, and the last shout of the brave gentlemen adventurers who went to their deaths singing, for the sake of the city they loved. "And so we've lost the other half of the amulet again," said Anthea, when they had told the Samoyed all about it. "Nonsense! Pah!" said the Samoyed. "That wasn't the other half. It was the same half that you've got, the one that wasn't crushed and lost." "But how could it be the same?" said Anthea gently. "Well, not exactly, of course. The one you've got is a good many years older, but at any rate it's not the other one. What did you say when you wished?" "I forget," said Jane. "I don't," said the Samoyed. "You said, 'Take us where you are,' and it did. So you see it was the same half." "I see," said Anthea. "But you mark my words," the Samoyed went on, "you'll have trouble with that priest yet." "Why, he was quite friendly," said Anthea. "Ah, the same. You better beware of the Reverend Rekmara." "Oh, I'm sick of the amulet," said Cyril. "We shall never get it." "Oh, yes, we shall," said Robert. "Don't you remember December the 3rd? "Jinx," said Cyril. "I'd forgotten that." "I don't believe it," said Jane, "and I don't feel at all well." "If I were you," said the Samoyed, "I should not go out into the past again till that date. You'll find it safer not to go where you're likely to meet that Egyptian any more, just at present. Of course we'll do as you say, said Anthea soothingly, though there's something about his face that I really do like. Still, you don't want to run after him, I suppose, snapped the Samoyed. You wait till the 3rd, then see what happens. Cyril and Jane were feeling far from well. Anthea was always obliging, so Robert was overruled, and they promised. And none of them, not even the Samoyed, at all foresaw, as you no doubt do quite plainly, exactly what it was that would happen on that memorable date. And that's the end of the chapter, and it's also the end of my reading for today. I'm just going to bookmark that, and I'll tell you how many more chapters. We have one more chapter to go, and I'm not reading it today. I'm reading it on Monday. Today's Friday. I'm probably going to read it on Monday unless there's something else that comes up between now and then. The next chapter, the last chapter of the book, is The Heart's Desire. There you go. Oh my goodness, what's going to happen on this November the 3rd, I think it was. Oh, and here's the picture from when they were on the ship leaving it. And the children spoke, there's the 2 versions of it. I shall tell you what the caption is on that. The word was spoken and the 2 great arches grew. That's because it was the same amulet, and because it had taken them to where it was. So there you go. So they didn't get shipwrecked. So there's the children going through theirs, and there's the priest about to go through his. Oh, he's a clever one, is that priest. Now just remember the fact that they said that they seemed to think he was quite nice somehow. There was something nice about his face. And he also seemed to be somehow slightly familiar. Yes, just a little bit spooky. We'll find out what happens. Considering the fact there's only one chapter to go and it's the last book in the trilogy, we will definitely find out what happens. Ha! I have no idea what it's going to be because I haven't actually read this book before. Right. And that's it. So have you got it? Oh, you're most welcome. I'm so glad I could read for you. Thank you for being here, Aunt. That's really great to have you here. And you too, Q. And I never did manage to find out how you like your name to be said. Thanks, Goriki. Thank you for the appreciation of my say command. It's also pronounce, but say is the easier version of it. I try to use a little bit of humour in the different things that I put into what I'm writing. Q's fine, that's great. Thank you. It's like coleslaw, the food here. I did wonder if it was like coleslaw. Yeah, when I was looking at the slaw part of it. But because it's written with a Q at the beginning, I just say Q. And I'll probably forget which way it's meant to be anyway. So thank you for saying that it's okay to say it that way. Right, so I shall give you some links, just a few small links here. I shall give you the Codex Discord server for those of you who want to catch some more readers reading old books. Go and join the Discord server and also look at the links for them underneath on my About Me page on Twitch. If you're over on YouTube, then you can come on over to Twitch. Yes, there is a link for my Twitch channel on YouTube, and then have a look at the stuff I'm talking about. And then if you look at the links down below on my YouTube, on my About Me page, then you'll see what the other channels are on Twitch of the different members in the group called Codex. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time with making up words myself at the moment. I don't know why. Maybe just because I've had lots of words today. So that's Codex. I am going to give you my YouTube channel. If you are watching on Twitch, there's no point in me telling you to click the link if you're on YouTube, because YouTube doesn't have the overlay with the chat here. So there's nothing there that you can click on. If you're on YouTube, you're already in the right place. If you go to YouTube from Twitch, you will be able to actually listen to a whole book, because I take all of the videos from my reading of a book and put them into one playlist, and then I label it as the name of the book and the author. And then if you want to, you can actually listen to a whole book. So if you've missed out on a book that you really wanted to hear, and it's one that you want to catch up on, that's where you'll find it. If you've missed one of my recording sessions, one of my live sessions on Twitch, and you want to actually fill in the gaps, you'll have to wait a week or two, because it's a week or two after I actually read live on Twitch that they go over to YouTube. I have some that I need to go and put over on YouTube at the moment, because I think I've run out of them. I usually do them on the same day that they are available on Twitch. When I'm reading them live, I put the next batch up on YouTube. They get released on the same day of the week. So I read 3 days a week: Monday, Wednesday, Friday, New Zealand, 3 p.m. And if you go to my Twitch channel, on the schedule tab, you will see what time it is for your time zone. And it may not be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It may be Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, depending on what part of the world you're in, because I'm in New Zealand, which is right next to the date line. That's one of those weird things. It kind of feels like time travel in your head when you're trying to get your head around that sort of traveling backwards and forwards across the date line. Anyway, were there any other links I needed to... Oh, I can give you my Discord server too, can't I? That's my Discord server. It's probably the quietest Discord server in the world, or almost. I always forget to write things there, except that I do get announcements from Twitch when I've gone live, will show up in Discord. So if you're in Discord and you join my Discord server, it will notify you when I go live. Don't forget that Discord, YouTube, and Twitch are all free services. So if you have randomly come across me reading and you want to find and want to hear more of these, join each of those services, and then those services will notify you when I either am going live or when I have put a video up, depending on which service you're joining. Yes, there are paid options for all of those ones, but you don't need to. You will still be able to get all the notifications as to when I'm live and all that sort of stuff. So thank you for being here. It's been great having you here, great having you listening, and I will give you... Oh, sorry, I just remembered. So here is Goriki's account on Twitch, and here is Soft Spoken's account. That's Ken. Both of those people are members of Codex. Goriki reads during summer and winter holidays where he lives, which is in Japan. And so because he's a teacher, he saves his voice for teaching the rest of the time. So in the summer and winter holidays, the long holidays over there, is when he does his reading. Otherwise, he plays games and things like that. Ken does a range of different things, but I think off and on he's reading all year through. Go and meet them, follow them, get to know them, be part of what they do. You know, just be part of the community. It's a great bunch of people. Yeah, and follow everybody on Twitch, you know, and say hi. Anyway, so there you go, all of that sort of stuff. So thank you for being here. Thank you for the fun. I'm looking forward to me reading for myself Seven Kites of Matariki, which is the New Zealand published book about, it's kind of like a legend style of the forming of Matariki, which is the star cluster, which in other places is known as Pleiades and the Seven Sisters. And it's Matariki is also the name for the Maori New Year, and we're coming up to that. It's, I think, the 24th of June, which is why that was sent to me. And I am in the process of finding out from the publisher if I am going to be able to read it on stream. I have said specifically I will not read it unless I have their permission from the publisher or the author or whoever it is that they put me in touch with, and I hope that they will let me. I really would like to read it to you, just because it's not often that you actually get to read something of the place that you come from when you come from a relatively small population like New Zealand is. Anyway, I look forward to seeing you next time if you can make it, and if you can't, that's okay. We'll see you some other time. Anyway, look after yourself and look after the people around you. Be kind to yourself. Give yourself a rest when you need it. Don't forget to drink lots of water. It's good for your brain and your body. Have a great day. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And we'll see you next time if we can. And in the meantime, happy reading. Bye.